We are going to bring up Pastor Tim Sizemore for the education, and we'll move on down the program.
Good morning. Good morning. Today, we come here today and gather not only to dedicate these bridges, but to honor two extraordinary men, Patrick and Daryl. I had the honor and privilege of serving with Daryl and with Patrick for many years, and happened to be really good friends. These two men gave their lives in service to their community and in defense of you and I and so many others. Patrick and Daryl were more than just law enforcement officers. They were friends, they were husbands, fathers, brothers. They were men of courage, integrity, and compassion. They wore the badge not for recognition or to get glory of anything or from anybody, but out of a deep calling to protect and to serve. And bravery, understand, was not found only in moments of danger, but in the quiet, everyday acts of kindness that both of them showed, understanding and duty that define their lives every day. These bridges will now carry their names, a symbol of strength as a bridge is, unity that brings us together, and a connection that they built between people and the community. As countless travelers pass over these bridges, it remind us that freedom and safety are not free. They're not free at all. They're carried on the shoulders of heroes like Patrick and Daryl. And though we grieve their loss, we will celebrate their legacy. If you will, join me in a word of prayer. Father God, we love you, and we come to you recognizing that you are the great protector. God, we thank you for your protection you give upon all these men and women who are in this room today serving. And God, I pray that you protect the family, friends from extraordinary grief, while allowing us to remember two great heroes, two men who wore the badge proudly, served well, who did the job no one else wanted to do in times that it had to be done. And God, I pray that as we remember them here today, we recognize that you are the giver and taker of life. You are sovereign, and you know your ways are so much higher than ours. God, I just pray for everyone here today that we remember these men in fond memories. Sadness will come, but God, help us remember good times. In Jesus' holy and precious name I pray. Amen. If you will, stand with me as we have the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You can be seated. Now let me introduce the Chairman of the Peach County Board of Commissioners, Mr. Martin Mosley.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's certainly an honor to be here. I see a lot of familiar faces out here. Thank you for all our neighbors showing up today. We really appreciate that. Daryl and Patrick were really special to us, and they gave the ultimate sacrifice for Peach County. We're here to salute them this morning and thank them once again. Their memory lives on. It's been, 9 years? Yep. 9 years now. I'll never forget that afternoon. My wife had driven into Byron. On the way back, she came in the house and said, I don't know what's going on, but there's just cars coming, police cars coming from everywhere going out 42. And of course, just a few minutes later, I started getting some text from our county administrator and telling me we had two officers down. And I guess Peach County has not been the same since. We're a family here in Peach County. Our government group is certainly really close, and it was just a really horrible day in the history of Peach County. Just briefly, I want to thank Sheriff Deese for his leadership through all that. It was devastating, not only to our Sheriff's Department, but to all of Peach County. And just proud to be here today to recognize these two great individuals. I'm going to read a proclamation from the Peach County Board of Commissioners on behalf of the citizens of Peach County. We have one copy for each family. We'll present that to you. And I'm going to read it right now. Whereas Sergeant Patrick Sondron and Deputy Daryl Smallwood of the Peach County Sheriff's Office courageously dedicated their lives to serving and protecting the citizens of Peach County. Whereas on November 6, 2016, Sergeant Sondron and Deputy Smallwood made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty, demonstrating exemplary bravery, integrity, and commitment to the safety of our community. Whereas their service and sacrifice will forever stand as a testament to the highest ideals of law enforcement and public service. Whereas the Peach County community remains deeply grateful for the courage, compassion, and professionalism that Sergeant Sondron and Deputy Smallwood exemplified through their careers. Whereas in lasting remembrance of their dedication and heroism, the Sergeant Patrick Sondron Memorial Bridge and Deputy Daryl Smallwood Memorial Bridge will be officially dedicated during this public ceremony. Whereas Byron Exit 149 will be named in honor of Sergeant Patrick Sondron, and Warner Robins Exit 146 will be named in honor of Deputy Daryl Smallwood, ensuring their memory endures for generations to come. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Peach County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim November 6, 2025 as Sergeant Patrick Sondron and Deputy Daryl Smallwood Day in Peach County, and encourages all citizens to honor their memory and reflect upon their courage, service, and profound impact they made on our community. In witness whereof, I hereby set my hand and cause the seal of Peach County, Georgia to be affixed on this 6th day of November 2025. Martin Mosley Jr., Chairman, Peach County Board of Commissioners. And again, we just salute the families. People don't realize it. We thank our deputies and our law enforcement officers all the time. We pray for them all the time. There's families that stand behind them and support them. And we just salute you folks. And again, thank you for your gift to Peach County and the service that these men provided for our county. Thank you. Do we want to present?
Thank you, Martin, for those words and that prayer this morning. It's real humbling for me to be standing here this morning. You know, events like this, I reflect my riding down here, and I ride by the road where this terrible event happened 9 years ago. And it really makes me reflect, as it does, I think, most people in this room, and that's what this morning is about, is, for me, is reflection. And it's one of the great privileges I've had serving in the state legislature is in action with our law enforcement and first responders through the years with events, unfortunately, like this, standing in the chamber in Atlanta, recognizing fallen heroes, law enforcement and others. It really, I wish the regular people out there, I know everybody in this room understands, but the hard, complicated job law enforcement does each and every day. How hard it is not knowing what each and every situation, each house you go to, or car you stop, or just what's happening around us in our communities. There's so much bad out there and bad people. And I just want to tell our law enforcement how much I appreciate it, how much I understand the hard job you do each and every day serving the citizens of Peach County and this state. And I just thank you for the opportunity to say a few words about that. It's really changed my outlook through the years on law enforcement. So thank you for your service. I really thank the service of Sergeant Patrick Sondron and Deputy Daryl Smallwood, the ultimate sacrifice they gave that day for the citizens of Peach County. I just want to also apologize for it being taking so long to get this ceremony put together, but thank you, Sheriff Dees, for staying with Senator Kennedy and I to getting these bridge dedications. And Senator Kennedy, since his regrets that he cannot be here today, he and I talk often, and his schedule, he's in a campaign, but his office really did a lot of the legwork to get this done through GDOT, and the bill drawn up through the House on my side in the Senate. And so Senator Kennedy, thank him a lot for that. But anyway, just a great morning this morning, and the bravery and the dedication of our law enforcement. We just need to thank. The first I've really got involved, I see my good friend Bennett Norris back there from Monroe County. He and his wife lost his son. Similar situations some years back. And I think about them, and I think about our families here today so often on what it means to be in law enforcement and what you face each and every day. So thank you, Peach County. Thank you each and every one being here. So this time they wanted, we have both these signs, but we also have two signs to give to the families for their house. And so the family of Deputy Daryl Smallwood, if you could come, or who could take this for them. But we have that as well as sign for Deputy Patrick. So on behalf of the state of Georgia, these signs will be there in perpetuity each and every day for a reminder to each of us that pass over those bridges what those two law enforcement meant to us and meant to their families. So I hope it's a great inspiration to many of us and to the public to take the time to thank our law enforcement each and every day for the great job they do. So thank you for this event today, put it together. So Michael Chester, Mayor, I think you're next.
Thank you, Rob. Morning, everybody. I was on November the 6th of 2016, my son and I were up in my office, which was on the corner up here, Highway 49 and Academy Street, and we were actually changing a window out in my building there. And there began to be a continuing stream of sirens and police cars. And believe me, I'm familiar with the sound. My office being on Highway 49 and my police department being very efficient about enforcing the speed limit here in town, I know the sound of a revving engine and a siren going by on a regular basis. And after about the 12th or 14th one, like Martin, I began to get concerned about what was going on, and I put my boy in the car. I was the mayor pro tem of the city of Byron at that time, and I had some concern about what was happening in my town. And I put my boy in the car, and we tried our best to figure out where everything was going on. And of course, we got part of the way down Highway 42, got stopped, and somewhere in there, or somewhere during the course of all that, I learned that two of our Peach County Sheriff's Department deputies had been shot, and I had no idea who they were. And it was some hours before I found out, and obviously you never want to hear that kind of news. And it was incredibly heartbreaking, especially to hear that Patrick was one of those two people. I met Patrick when I was first elected to the city council way back in 2001, and he was working for the Byron Police Department way back then. And great guy, wonderful personality, effervescent, you know, how about Poe? Just a smile on his face all the time. And of course, he went to work for the sheriff's department not terribly long after that, and I got to see him quite often. And the only problem I ever had with Patrick was his strange love. I don't know where Spurgeon gets it. It's the same thing. It's a Mopar thing. Nobody understood why these guys like Dodges so much when they could be driving Ford.
Mopar, no corporate.
But as I reflected on all of that in preparation for today, I remembered back the funerals for these two fine gentlemen, the turnout, the people who stood on the side of the road and waved and showed up. It was an incredible outpouring of love and support. And I was thinking about the outpouring of support on the day it happened. I saw cars from no less than 5 different police agencies in the local area. And all of you are represented here today. And what I especially like to say, and I never really got the opportunity to say it, and I can say it today as mayor, is that I really, truly thank you, not only for showing up that day, but in the coming weeks. You know, while our police officers were dealing with the aftermath, and you guys showed up and helped patrol the city of Byron. I mean, I had to do a double take on several occasions when I look up and here's a Houston County deputy patrolling up my street, or a Warner Robins police officer patrolling up the street. And I remembered that you guys were here to help, and it's brotherhood. And I truly appreciate that, and I thank you for that. These guys were, aside from being law enforcement officers, they were regular people, just like me, just like every person that serves on my city council, just like every citizen in the city of Byron. They had hobbies and people they loved, and people who loved them, things they like to do. And like Martin, I've got 2 proclamations here. One for Sergeant Patrick Michael Sondron, and one for Deputy Daryl Wayne Smallwood. And I debated about reading them. They have some personal stuff in them. And they both end with an admonition that we're here to honor these men with the dedication of bridges in their honor. And I am proclaiming today, November the 6th, 2025, Sergeant Patrick Michael Sondron Day in the city of Byron, and November 8th, 2025, Deputy Daryl Wayne Smallwood Day in the city of Byron. And both of them end with the admonition that all of us remember that, probably most of you are like me. You've gotten a traffic ticket once or twice in your life, and you're not particularly happy to see that particular law enforcement officer in your window, but when tragedy strikes and you call 911 and those guys show up, you're damn glad to see them then. And I just ask that all of you keep them close to your hearts and in your prayers every single day, especially in these turbulent times when you have people out there that just absolutely say and do some of the most ridiculous, incredible stuff, and they direct it at people like law enforcement officers. And it's a thankless job, but I appreciate the fact that you guys are willing to do it. And I'd ask that all of you remember them every single day in your thoughts and prayers. I would like to present these proclamations to members of the family. And I'd like to recognize those members of the family that are here. I know we have several. With Daryl's family, I know we're going to present this proclamation to you, Miss Becky. Miss Becky Foster is here. Harley and Hawk and Wyatt are all here. I'm glad to see you guys doing well. You look great. And Melissa, glad to have you here. Sierra, Ethan, Jacob. So if Miss Becky would come up, let me do this. Let me just put this microphone down and I'll come down there. Not be able to climb these stairs, but thank you all for being here. Thank you for listening to me, and please keep these families in your prayers as we go forward in your lives. Thank you. I think the sheriff is next. Buck. Or is it going to be Terry?
I'm overruling, Buck. We had a guest show up today that we didn't realize was coming, our DA, Miss Anita Howard, so we're gonna put her in before Buck. So we're gonna ask Miss Anita to say a few words.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you, Sheriff Dees, for asking me to say a few words. As I look around the room, it's hard to hold back the tears. But what I know is that God is close to the brokenhearted. And we need God, and we need His love, and we need His wisdom, and our law enforcement officers need His protection. This past October marked 20 years that I've been a prosecutor. And being a law enforcement officer is a thankless job. And I want to thank them. I want to thank their families for their sacrifice, and specifically for Deputy Smallwood and Sergeant Sondron, who gave the ultimate sacrifice that will never be forgotten by this community or your district attorney's office. And we're going to be here for you as we're here today. And specifically, I want to say to Melissa, I know she's taking a picture. Specifically, I want to say to Melissa that Melissa, you and I have become friends. She has invited me into her home many times, and she shared so many stories. And I want us to continue to share those stories about Sergeant Sondron and Deputy Smallwood. They will never be forgotten, and we will continue to uplift law enforcement. God bless. And I believe now we have Sheriff Buck Shannon, Peach County Sheriff's Office.
Good morning. The more I sit here, I think about that day. Earlier that week, we had a major court case in Peach County. Patrick took some time off to drive the bus. He was on vacation. So Major Cameron took Patrick's spot. He worked that Friday. He come by the courthouse and he looked at me. He said, I may be able to do the rest of today and maybe tomorrow, but I know I can't work Sunday. Would you want to work Sunday for Patrick? And I said, yeah, I'll work Sunday. Well, I got a call Saturday saying that Patrick was back. They didn't need me to work Sunday. And I said that to say if I had been working that day, I could have been, senseless for motorcycles. I mean, it was a call about motorcycles. I mean, it was just senseless. And the more I think about it, the more I just, I would have been working that day. And I'm sorry, y'all. I just sit here and think about all the family, but one that just sticks out is Daryl's son. You were 5 years old when this happened? 3. Just imagine losing your dad at 3. I lost my dad at 24. But at 3, it's senseless. I'm sorry. We're going to go ahead and give flowers to the family if y'all will come up. We also have one presentation of flower for Mr. Dan Raven. If you would come up, please, sir. He lost his son in the line of duty, who was a South Carolina State Trooper. And after then, they moved to Marshallville, and they've been part of this family ever since. Thank you, Mr. Dan. What you and this test does was thank you, everyone. Now we'll be giving the mic over to Chief Wilson Cameron.
Good morning. You know, 2016 was probably, I've been a police officer 32 years this year. 2016 was by far the roughest year that I ever experienced in the job. Set stage for you that year. First we had, on November the 6th, was Daryl and Patrick. Just a short time later, all this happened. Everything I'm supposed to tell you happened within about a period of a month and a half. You had the situation with Patrick and Daryl. Just a short time later, you had 2 officers that were shot and killed in Americus, Georgia, Nicholas Marr and Jody Smith. And then just a few weeks after that, on a search warrant in Crawford County, I had one long shot. So to say that was the toughest year that I've ever been through is not something you ever want to visit or go through again, ever. You know, there's things that happen in your life, especially in my life, and I can remember exactly where I was. I can remember exactly maybe what was in my hand, what I was eating, what I was drinking. Exactly where I was in that very moment in time. And those are things that you will never forget. I don't know if any of that happens to y'all. Maybe I'm just a weird guy. I don't know. But I remember when the Trade Center bombing happened. I was sitting in the DA's office in Peach County, and I was talking with Prosecutor Biff Tillis about a case. And I had just made a cup of coffee when I saw the second plane hit the Trade Center. The day Daryl and Patrick were shot, I was coming out of Hawkinsville, Georgia, pulling a horse trailer. And I was crossing over Highway 49 on the River Road, around behind the cemetery, when my phone started ringing. The day my father died, I was at my barn. I had just finished working a horse and training it, and I was taking the second loop out of the cinch strap whenever I got the call about my father died, who died actually in May 2017, just after Daryl and Patrick and Nicholas and Jody and then our own situation in Crawford County. With Nicholas and Jody, I got the call on them. I was sitting in my office watching Fox News. There's things that happen to you in moments in time that you just remember very vividly, the details of it. And I told the families, the Smallwood family and the Sondron family, at the candlelight vigil at the park, when we had that, there's two things that would never happen. Their memory would never die. And we will keep going. We have no choice but to do that. You have no choice to do that in your own lives. Just keep going. This world keeps turning. No matter what tragedy brings or comes your way. This dedication and this bridge dedication, I was asked by the media why this one was so important. These bridges will forever, as long as they're standing. And even if they're torn down and rebuilt and made bigger and grander, these names will always be on these bridges. For the rest of time, for the rest of eternity. That's why this dedication is so important, because it etches their names and their memory to this community forever. We can talk about the lives that a police officer saves, the lives that your father, both of your fathers, might have saved, the carnage they could have prevented. I tell police officers all the time, you don't ever know what you're going to prevent. We can look at what we've done and the stats and the production that we've done, and maybe, pulling somebody out of a burning car, or getting EMS to them, performing CPR, or getting to a house or domestic quick to stop an assailant from causing any more damage. But you never know what you prevent in law enforcement sometimes, other than maybe looking at the low crime rates going down, or crime stats going down, just sitting at a gas station parking lot at night doing your police reports. Could prevent that store from getting robbed. Stopping a speeding car could stop someone from dying in a bad crash. And we can talk about the things that they might have done in their career and lives that they made better. But the way I look at it is, they're still doing that today. Because I can tell you, there's not one call that I've been on personally since that day. And I think if anybody knew Daryl and Patrick, or if anybody's known personally a law enforcement officer that's lost their lives in the line of duty, every call I get out of, those names come into my head. I don't care what the call is. There's something in the back of my head. Maybe it's Daryl, maybe it's Patrick saying, Daryl, Patrick, Daryl, Patrick. To me, that is them continuing to watch over us, telling us don't let our guard down, stay sharp, stay vigilant. So that means that their lives definitely were not taken in vain. And they're continuing to protect right now. I know that it does it for me, because it always happens. And it probably always will. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you for turning out. If y'all would just look around you, the people that are here. I told you they will never be forgotten. And we will keep going.
Good morning. As Chief Cannon was speaking, it was kind of unique that the signs fell. If you knew Patrick and Daryl, they loved to play pranks. So I think that's their way of sending him a message that, we're watching you. We're going to see if you bend over and pick up this flat sign. But you know, we could all tell stories, and I think that's what's important about these events. We're 9 years in. A lot has changed. You know, Daryl's kids, I don't recognize them. They're all grown up. Wyatt's, I understand, becoming an athlete down there playing football, baseball, anything that bounces, he's got it. His older brother and sister now are in college and deciding what they're going to be when they grow up. I'm sure, just like their dad, whatever they choose, they're going to be successful. And then Patrick's family has, 4 grandbabies now that he didn't see? 5? Wow, I can't imagine. I've got 3, and they're the center of my universe, so I can just imagine Patrick and those grandbabies. And Ethan even found somebody to marry him. I mean, miracles happen. No, I'll pick at these folks because I love every one of them. And, you know, we talk about the blue family. A lot of people don't understand what that means. Sometimes early on in our careers, we don't exactly know what it means. You know, in Peach County, we've never lost an officer in the line of duty until November 6, 2016. And it didn't take long to realize what the blue line means because this happened not far from my house, and I was able to get up, get dressed, and get there, and I could still hear the gunshots when I got there. And the street was already lined with police cars. I remember seeing Bibb County, Warner Robins PD, Houston County SO. They were already on that scene, and they continued to come all night. And like the mayor said earlier, Houston County stayed with us, answered calls for the sheriff's office for the next week, worked our jail for us, worked our 911 center for us. They give us time to grieve and accept, or try to accept, the tragedy that had been thrown our way. You know, Charlie Daniels wrote a song one time, said the devil went down to Georgia. Now, we all know he's been here, well invested in Georgia. But that Sunday, November 6, 2016, he made a trip down to God's country. And he came in here and he stole a soul, and he sent that evil demon out to do his due. And took Daryl and Patrick away from us. Senseless, stupid. Absolutely no excuse for it. And you know, I don't know, they tell you time heals. Let me go ahead and tell you, I know we've got ladies and children, but that's bullshit. You never heal when you love somebody. There's not a day goes by that I don't put on this blue wristband. And what we've got to do with these events, these children that are growing up and these grandkids need to hear about Daryl and Patrick. And we have got to be the one to tell their story. They're not here to tell it. So it's not just up to the families. This community owes it to them to tell that story. And we're going to do that. And I can tell you, this becomes more of a challenge, because if you've ever worked with me, when I do an event, the next year I always want to up the ante. Now, we keep upping the ante, and I'm retired, so I don't know how Buck's going to up this ante next year. Because I started out big right after this happened. I was aggravating our representatives about roads and buildings, and they're like, "Oh, you realize the trouble of naming a road, and everybody on that road has to change addresses," and like, well, that might not work. We finally consented on the sign, because we were down. I had my eyes on them 2 roundabouts they built on the connector. But they finally consented to give us a bridge instead of a roundabout. So at least Patrick and Daryl can watch people ride by and not watch them go round and round. So that's a good thing. I do have a special gift for the families. There's only 2, and this is a handmade item. I don't know if Ken Grail is here, but Ken makes these. Let's see who this is. brought Buck and I one several months back, and I'm like, you know, that's
Daryl again.
I'm like, that's really cool. You know, I'm old, and anything handmade to me is extra special, but he made these in his shop. Miss Becky, this is yours. It's got Daryl's name. Now, I know you live in Dooley County, but if Ernie gets to acting up, you can just bob him a couple times and he'll get in line. Melissa, I'm not going to tell you that, because I know Jason is engaged to Sierra, and I work with Jason, and he probably needs bobbing every once in a while, but we don't want him showing up to work with a knot on his head. I want to take just a few minutes. I know y'all are ready to get out of here and go see these bridges. But there's a lot of thank yous. An event like this just doesn't happen overnight. And in the past, I kind of ramrodded them through by myself. But in my retirement, I've got a 9-month-old that comes to my house every day looking for me to rock him to sleep. So I spent a lot of time rocking, and you don't want to hear my songs that I sing you to sleep with. So I reached out and asked Chief Cannon if he would host it up here. I wanted something close to the bridges. I'd already been in touch with DOT, and he says, nah, you ain't having no event on the bridge. Of course, being in law enforcement, you can understand that, especially as busy as these two bridges is. Can y'all imagine the people that are going to sit there and look at Patrick and Daryl's name? There's going to be thousands of people see them, and the sign might not tell you about them, but I wonder how many people is going to go home and Google them to see what that name means. If there was a way we could put a search engine on that. So we're going to get their name out. Like Chief said, they're here with us from now on. It's permanent. But I reached out to Chief Cannon and asked him if he would host this event. And, you know, they got a team that does that here in Byron. It's called the Beauty and the Beast. It's Chief Cannon and Tiffany. Stand up, Tiffany. See, Daryl knows what I'm talking about. Both of them know what I'm talking about. That's the Beauty and the Beast. And then at the Commissioner's office, we've got the A team, which is April, Ashley, and Austin. So that's the teams that put all this together. So if you would, let's give them a big round of applause. And I think Austin from Governor Kennedy's office. Is Austin here? Thank you, Austin. I aggravated them for a couple of years now, and finally got to send Senator Kennedy text messages earlier this year, and finally Austin calls, and he says, I'm supposed to talk to you, and he asks, please don't send him any more texts. We're going to do whatever you want. But no, we really appreciate Austin. It was right at last notice, and he was operating on a tight timeline, but he took this job and ramrodded it through for us, and we really appreciate the work you did into that. And tell Senator Kennedy that we say he needs to give you a raise. And we'll sign, Commissioner Martin Mosley will sign the letter, and the mayor will second that. So again, thank y'all all for coming today. This really means so much to these families and the officers that cared so much for these two men. Like we said today, they weren't just deputies. They were fathers, brothers, uncles. I mean, they were loved by so many. They have reached so many lives in their careers. Every time I see a charter bus, I think of Patrick. And every time I see a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, I think of Daryl. So, I mean, stuff happens all during the day that rarely a day goes by that something doesn't happen that makes you stop and think of them. I mean, you can look at the clock and it's 3:11. That's Patrick's number, or 3:06, and that's Daryl's number. So they will always be with us from now on. I'd like to ask Tim, if he would, to close us out in prayer. Thank y'all again.
And Representative Stinson is here to support the family
Oh, okay, I didn't see Representative Stinson over here. She slipped in on us, and, you know, she's been a big asset of ours and a friend of ours at the Capitol too. And we also don't want to leave Miss Melanie out. We talk about the Smallwoods and the Sondrons, but Melanie was right in that mix, because she's the one that convinced Daryl to come up here, got him all engaged, and was going to get him hooked up. But, you know, we love her just like we do the others. Thank y'all again for coming.
If you stand with me, you know, it's a sad day, obviously, as we, you know, as the, remembering what happened that day. But after, I remember very vividly, as the rest of them do, where I was at, staying in my kitchen, and my phone was blowing up that night. Well, my church members live right next door to where the event happened. She called me and she said, "Tim, what's going on? It sounds like a war over here." And I said, "I don't know." So my phone was just blowing up and blowing up. And when another officer texted me and told me that we had 2 down and 1 didn't make it, I remember it was one of the weirdest moments of my life. As I remember, I knew right off the bat, for some reason, I don't know why, I knew it was Patrick. And then after preaching Patrick's funeral, on the way back from the graveside to the car, Chief Cannon asked me to come back. I was out of law enforcement at the time, preaching full-time, just taking over as the senior pastor, and he said, "I need you to come back and be my chaplain." And I was like, man, I don't know. And Daryl and Patrick is what led me to come back into law enforcement. And I want you guys to know, I came back to try to do a little bit, just what I could, to try to encourage you to stand the fight. I'm speaking to the officers, obviously, here in the room. As Chief just laid out all that, I started my career in Suffolk County Sheriff's Office. I worked with some of the families of the deputies, officers who got killed down there. So when all that happened together, I said, man, I know what I would be going through. I'd be coming home to a wife going, "You need to find something else to do." So I just want to encourage you. You hear it all the time. I want you to hear it one more time. We need you. This community needs you. The state needs you. Stay in the fight. Stay healthy, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, ready to fight all the time. And family members, do what you can to help them do that. Kiss them every day when they leave. Father God, we love you. God, what you know is Daryl and Patrick was and are loved. God, I thank you for these men and women who stand in the gap every day, who provide peace for us, that work all night so that we can sleep peacefully at night, that give up better paying jobs, better benefits, easier lives, to do the calling that I believe you've placed on their life. God, I pray that you help them stay strong. And God, I pray that we never have to name another bridge. But God, I pray that as we pass under these 2 every day, as these officers work this interstate or go back and forth up and down and they see it, they're reminded this fight is important. We need to stay healthy all the time. God, I pray that you bring your protection upon these men and women in this room, all of them, but especially our law enforcement. God, as we leave here today, I pray that you give this family comfort, peace, and encouragement to know that their loved ones will never be forgotten, and they are loved to the end of time. God, we thank you for all you do for us, and being the creator. God, we thank you for the hope that you give us in your Son, Jesus Christ. In Jesus' holy and precious name I pray. Amen. Amen. You're dismissed.